Good Christian disappears of the book. Never lose sight of the Lord.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bhakti Param Hari Nama Dharam Karajapya Karam Hari Nama Param Nayane Satatam Pranayashrudharam Pranamami Shashishrutam Gauravaram Hari Bhakti Param Hari Nama Dharam Karajapya Karam.
Hare Krishna, Sri-Chan Prema Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, all glory to you.
You said now your students are not here.
Yes, they are coming. This is what we are facing. We are facing what we are facing. Students.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam, all glory to you.
Said now your students are not here.
They are here. They are coming. They are here. They are here now, you can see. Hare Krishna. They are here. Can you give me a host right now?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, welcome. Hare Bo. Hare Bo, Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, welcome, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Oh, welcome, welcome. Namaste Vishnu Pada Krishna Prestya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Prasharana Sister Snehava Pachitya Star. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Swasati Guru Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So you are welcome today for today's class. Last week we came up to verse 26. Yes, we came up to verse 26. Then verse 25, like the mind, we're talking about the nature of the mind and how it is so flickering. And but this flickering mind needs to be controlled first before you can become a yogi. A servant of the mind cannot become a yogi. Yes, to become a yogi means first the senses and the mind must be controlled, because the mind is always pushing and the urges of the senses are always pushing. So to become a yogi, one wants to not succumb to the urges of the senses. And for that, we say to have the sadhaka, the practicing devotee, very strong scriptural intelligence is needed. Strong scriptural intelligence is needed so that you will remember the injunctions You will remember that bringing the senses in contact with their objects is the cause of all, is the mother of all miseries. Therefore, he restrains the senses. He restrains the urges of the senses. So by that strong sastric intelligence, he is able to help himself. Then when he's situated in that and begins to positively practice devotional activities, we say that a kind of internal awareness, internal connection is awakened. Yes, he begins to enjoy the self within. He begin to have contact with the super soul. He begin to have dictations from the Lord in the heart. So his happiness is within, his vision is within, his aim is within. But before you can come to this level, this is a higher level of realization. It's only for those who have been able to control the urges of the senses. But Arjuna said, Krishna, you are saying that, okay, we'll come to that. We'll come to that. Krishna is saying that whatever the mind wanders due to its flickering nature, that you must, certainly withdraw it and bring it back, under the control of the self. That the mind is really flickering, but you must make constant endeavor to control the mind, to bring it under full control. It is true, Krishna agreed with Arjuna, that the mind is flickering. It is actually very unsteady, but you should try to make constant endeavor to bring it back under the control of the self. That self-sense indulgence is never a solution. Satisfying or fulfilling, going after satisfying the urges of the senses is never a solution. It never pacifies the senses. Instead, it makes them become more wild. So the solution is to tolerate the urges and try to control them by channeling your energy to positive devotional activity. That you must do. And we are going to see that later. We see that nobody else will do for you. Somebody else will not control your mind and the senses for you. They can help you to do many other things, including washing your clothes and all that. But it is you who have to control your mind and your senses. Nobody else will do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. It's a call for personal application. That if you are able to do that, then the super soul is already reached. To such a man, happiness and distress, honor and dishonor, fame and infamy are all the same. That his vision will change, how he sees things, he will see the Lord in the heart, and his work will change also, because owing to that vision, he tries to qualify his activities. He does not become engaged in all kinds of sense gratificatory activities. He selects his activities. So all that we are going to hear about. The importance of controlling the senses, we are going to hear about also. If you control the senses, what do you achieve? What is the need? What do you gain? What is the work of one who has controlled the senses? How does he see things? This we are going to see in the next verses up to 32. So let's continue. In 26, we said that from wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering nature, flickering unsteady nature, one must certainly bring it under the control of the self. And this loka is very, very sweet. Yato Nishalati, Manasas, Chancharam, Astiram, Titas, Tatu, Yamiyatat, Atmani, Ibabasamiyat. And there, Krishna uses 3 adjectives to describe the mind. 3 good adjectives to describe the mind. One is Nischalati. Nischalati means the mind is always wandering, going from place to place. Chanchalam. Chanchalam means the mind is flickering. Then Astiram, unsteady, always wandering, flickering, and unsteady. So, but it says by steady intelligence, the yogi must overcome all these mental tendencies He cannot indulge his mind and gratify his senses. He must know for certain that yielding to the mind will destroy his tranquility. So rather, he should avoid, he should be fixed in the self, not in the thoughts of the mind. So this is the verse we are. So 26 on the screen, there's a capsule on the Prabhupada, the Prabhupada, that the nature of the mind is flickering and unsteady, but a self-realized you has to control the mind. The mind should not control him. One who controls the mind and therefore the senses as well is called the Goswami or Swami. And one who is controlled by the mind is called a Godas or servant of the senses. The Goswami knows the standard of sense happiness. In transcendental sense happiness, the senses are engaged in the service of Prerequisite or the supreme owner of the senses, Krishna. Serving Krishna with purified senses is called Krishna consciousness. That is the way of bringing the senses under full control. What is more, that is the highest perfection of yoga practice. So control of the mind is very important. Okay? Yeah. Then one may ask, the next verse. Prasanta manasam yenam yoginam sukam uttamam upaiti santarajasam brahmabhutam akalmasam brahmabhuta akalmasam. The Amatan is affecting everything also, including the vision. Amatan is affected. Hare Krishna. So can somebody read the purport for us so we can hear what the release the purport said? Purport number 27.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Purport. Brahma Bhuta is the state of being free from material contamination and situated in the transcendental service of the Lord. Mad Bhaktim Labhate Param. One can Bhagavad Gita 18.54. One cannot remain in the quality of Brahman, the Absolute, until one's mind is fixed on the lotus feet of Lord. Savaya Manaha Krishna Padma Vidayoho. To be always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, or to remain in Krishna consciousness, is to be factually liberated from the mood of passion and all material contamination. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So that is it. And that's where we expected to arrive at. That happiness comes to a yogi, yes, even before he attains perfection. That means when he becomes free from the influence of the modes, he attains a platform called Brahma Bhuta. This Brahma Bhuta platform is where he becomes free from all kinds of anchorings and all kinds of lamentation. He becomes equiposed. So that is the platform that you reach before you can go ahead to practice pure Krishna consciousness. But below that platform, the influence of the modes are there, and that will be distracting. But once you are able to conquer the senses and attain that equilibrium, mental equilibrium, then pure devotional service actually can begin from there. Therefore, we say, where did he get this impression, this unsteady impressions from? Because once you begin to practice Krishna consciousness, the mind begins to exhibit its flickering nature. begin to wander, trying to distract you. The more you are chanting, the more you are chanting, the more the mind is trying to take you to different. So this is due to the impressions from previous lives. His activities in the previous life, the subtle impressions of his activities in the previous life is now haunting his present mental space. So what he should do is to tolerate them and constantly do the positive activities. So this is the science. You say one cannot remain, one cannot remain in the equality of Brahman, the absolute, until one's mind is fixed on the lotus feet of Krishna. So when the urges are coming, from previous impressions are coming, one should steadily tolerate them while consistently engaging in the positive activities. So consistent practice with determination is needed for one to be able to overcome the urges of these senses, which are coming from previous lives' activities. So this is it. A devotee's realization, however, goes beyond the yogis. The devotee remains unsatisfied even after achieving his own happiness. His interest is pleasing Krishna, which awakens him to a greater level. In text 28 to 32, Krishna explains that the perfection of yoga is to realize the super soul. So this is the next, there's a little subdivision or sub-theme here. And it is like this: Dhyana yoga, perfection in yoga, realization of Krishna as super soul. From verse 18 to 36. So we are on it. Verse 28. So, Yujam evam sadat manam yogi vigata kalmana sukena brahma sansparsam atyantam sukam asnute. Study in the self, being freed from all material contamination. The yogi achieves the highest perfectional stage of happiness in touch with the Supreme Consciousness. Purport to read. Somebody should read the purport for us, please.
Purport. Self-realization means knowing one's constitutional position in relationship to the Supreme. The individual soul is part and parcel of the Supreme, and his position is to render transcendental service to the Lord. This transcendental contact with the Supreme is called Brahma Samsparasha.
Brahma Samsparasha. It's called Brahma Samsparasha. Okay, so that is it. To attain liberation means to have contact with the Super Soul and to continue to act in our constitutional relationship with the Lord in the heart. And this is called Brahma Samsparasha. That the previous verse described the yogi who attains self-realization, who realized that it's not his body, but his soul, qualitatively one with Brahman. But this verse describes going beyond that realization to the realization of the super soul. Yes. Thus, the yogi, one who is in touch with the super self or with the supreme self, experiences sukhena, transcendental happiness. Okay? So, in other words, being able to control the senses is just the beginning. But when one controls the senses, it needs to become internally engaged in its constitutional position. So the practice of a liberated soul, when one is liberated from the influence of the modes, he has to practice something higher So he practices devotional service. That's where real devotional service begins. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, na suchati, na kamsati, no anchoring, no lamentation. Samaha sarvesu bhutesu, mad bhaktin lavate panam. He becomes equally disposed to all living entities. He becomes friendly to all living entities. Then his real devotional service begins. And that is where a devotee, that is different between a yogi and a devotee. A yogi realizes that there is super soul, but the devotee goes ahead to facilitate the relationship between the individual soul and the super soul by devotional practice, by service. So when that is done, he experiences a kind of happiness from within, which is called Brahma Sukhina. He becomes happy from within. He attains happiness from within by his contact with the super soul. And that is called Brahma Samsvasa. Yes. Contact with the super soul. Yes. The such person becomes so internally engaged that he will be no longer interested in external activities. He can be inside his room and still be very happy. His happiness does not depend on external contacts. He will be happy within, illumined within, because his focus is within. So he becomes internally connected, and there is a flow of happiness which sustains him. And he doesn't want to lose that. Then it's pure devotional service begins. So this is the purpose of this verse. That this liberation is achieved by practicing yoga with a controlled mind and thereby contacting the super soul. Thus, a yogi can gradually process and progress from an impersonal realization to the personal realization. That means, however, that the super soul is realizing we also gradually turn into Bhagavan. Yes, at the point of that realization, it is the particular form of the Lord that you are attached to that will manifest. When you have contact with the super soul, if you are a yogi, you will see the Lord as the super soul. But if you are a bhakta, you will see him, as either Sitaram or Lakshmi Narayan or Radha Krishna, depending on your relationship with the Lord. The Lord will reveal himself to you. So this is how it is. Not everyone will see the same thing. Everybody has his own method. So it is his own Easter day. It is his Lord's eternal Lord that he is going to see. He's going to see the Lord and continue his relationship. In other words, even the personalist, when he get contact with the super soul, he also begin to realize his eternal relationship with the super soul and want to also become a bhakta. So that is the beauty of the whole thing. Krishna further clarifies this point in the next verse, verse 29. Sarva bhuta stamatmana, sarva bhuta nichatmani, iksate yoga yuktatma, sarvatra samadasana. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized man sees me everywhere. The self-realized man sees me everywhere. So, purport.
A Krishna conscious yogi. A Krishna conscious yogi is the perfect seer because he sees Krishna, the Supreme, situated in everyone's heart as Super Soul, Paramatma. Ishvara Sava Bhutanam Hiri Desha Arjun Tishtati. The Lord in his Paramatma future is situated within both the hearts of the dog and that of a Brahmana. The perfect yogi knows that the Lord is eternally transcendental and is not materially affected by his presence in either a dog or a Brahmana. That is the supreme neutrality of the Lord. The individual soul is also situated in the individual hearts, but he is not present in all hearts. That is the distinction between the individual soul and the super soul. One who is not factual in the practice of yoga cannot see so clearly. A Krishna conscious person can see Krishna in the hearts of both the believer and the non-believer. In the Shrimti, this is confirmed as follows. Atatatsva cha matretva cha atma hi paramo hari. The Lord, being the source of all beings, is like the mother and the maintainer. As the mother is neutral to all different kinds of children, the Supreme Father or Mother is also. Consequently, the Super Soul is always in every living being. Outwardly, also, every living being is situated in the energy of the Lord. As will be explained in the 7th chapter, the Lord has primarily two energies, the spiritual or superior, and the material or inferior. The living entity, although part of the superior energy, is conditioned by the inferior energy. The living entity is always in the Lord's energy. Every living entity is situated in him in one way or another. The yogi sees equally because he sees that all living entities, although in different situations according to the result of fruitive work, in all circumstances remain the servants of God. Whilst in the material energy, the living entity serves the material senses, and while in the spiritual energy, it serves the Supreme Lord directly. In either case, the living entity is the servant of God. This vision of equality is perfect in a person in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
So you can see, when one attains the stage beyond the influence of the modes, two things happen. His vision changes. His vision changes. And his work changes also. His bhava changes, his kriya changes. His vision changes, his work changes. So these two verses, this 29 and 30, discuss about the vision. What is that vision? That vision is that he sees the super soul not only in himself, but in all other living entities. Vijaya Vinaya Sampane Brahmane Gavi Hastini Suni Chaiva Sabavicha Pandita Samadasya. He sees with equal vision both the dog eater, the Brahmana. He sees the super soul in every living entity. Therefore, he doesn't want to commit violence to any living entity, because he sees the living entity's body as the domiciliary, as the domain, as the home of the living entity. The body of the individual soul is seen as the house of the Lord, because he's seen the Lord within the heart of every living entity. So he would not want to commit any violence to the abode of the Lord. Therefore, he respects every living entity, and he offers obeisance to the super soul or the Lord in the heart of every living entity. Even if he sees a dog, he doesn't see the dog. He doesn't see the dog, but he sees the super soul. He's internally conscious, so he sees the super soul. When he sees an elephant, he doesn't see the body of the elephant. He sees the super soul. When he sees a goat, he sees the super soul. When he sees any living entity, an elephant, he sees a tiger, he sees the super soul. So he offers obeisances to the super soul in all living entities. That doesn't mean we should go out and begin to offer obeisances to dogs and fowls and odongos. No, we can do that very softly. Not that we go and physically bow down. If you do that here, you will not be seen as normal. But in places where there are yogis, people know this, so they are not surprised. But in our place here, if you go about offering obeisances to cats and dogs and goats and cows, then people will consider you not normal. However, the super soul is there. So in a subtle way, you can offer your obeisances because you are not just seeing the body, but you are seeing the super soul. And this is the perfect vision of a Krishna conscious person. Therefore, he doesn't want to commit violence. Even to step on ants is very careful. Even before he fights with cockroaches, he's very, very careful. Even when he's careful, he doesn't want to do it. But some unavoidable situation, he has to drive those things away because the body they are carrying and their understanding is dangerous. Though the super soul is also there in their heart and in respects and response to the super soul. Still, we have to be careful to avoid, snakes, cockroaches. We should live in a way that our places will be so clean that these living entities don't just come around. We should situate ourselves in the mode of goodness so that these living entities will not come around just like that. Otherwise, you'll be forced to commit violence to the body of the living entity, practically speaking. So this is it. The devotee sees beyond the physical body. He sees the soul in all living entities, and he relates to the soul in all living entities. Therefore, naturally, it becomes very humble and respectful. So the question is, if a devotee, somebody who is self-realized, whose vision has become purified, can seize the Lord in all living entities, how much more in human beings? If we can respect animals, then naturally we respect all human beings. It doesn't matter whether it belongs to other religions, whether it belongs to any other caste or any other tribe. He respects all living entities. He respects all human beings. If he can respect all human beings, how much more the devotees? He will respect all the devotees naturally. And if he can respect all devotees, then he will respect God. He will respect God naturally and offers obedience. So it naturally becomes humble. That is the point. It naturally becomes a devotee, naturally becomes humble upon realizing the super soul. Become very conscious and humble and go about things very attentively and carefully. So that is the purpose of this verse. So the 29 is a continuation of that. Yomam pasyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pasyati tasyaham na pranasyami sashamena pranasyati. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. So it's an extension. Extension. For one who sees with equal vision like this, what are his qualities? Or what is the gain? What is the benefit? What is the benefit of seeing with equal vision? Seeing the Lord in the heart in all living entities. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur further explains Krishna's spirit. Okay, let us read the purport first, please. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Srila Prabhupada's purport.
A person in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, carry on.
A person in Krishna consciousness certainly sees Lord Krishna everywhere, and he sees everything in Krishna. Such a person may appear to see all separate manifestations of the material nature, but in each and every instance, he is conscious of Krishna, knowing that everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. Nothing can exist without Krishna, a basic principle of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the development of love of Krishna, a position transcendental even to the material liberation. At this stage of Krishna consciousness, beyond self-realization, the devotee becomes one with Krishna in the sense that Krishna becomes everything for the devotee, and the devotee becomes full in loving Krishna. An intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee then exists, never be annihilated, nor is the personality of Godhead ever out of the sight of the devotee. To me, a devotee takes no such risk. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita 538. Prema Rita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaha Sadeva Rideyesu Valicha Yanti Yam Samayanduranam Yam
Yamasundaram.
Sudar Achinti Yarusam Tam Aham Bajami. I worship the Prema Lord Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee whose eyes are anointed with the bulb of love. He is seen in his eternal form of Samansundara, situated within the heart of the devotee. At this stage, Lord Krishna never disappears from the sight of the devotee, nor does the devotee ever lose sight of the Lord. In the case of a yogi who sees the Lord as Paratma within the heart, the same applies. Such a yogi turns into a pure devotee and cannot bear to live for a moment without seeing the Lord within himself. Hari Hari.
So very beautifully encapsulated. Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Yeah, on the screen you can see that full in loving Krishna. At this stage of Krishna consciousness, beyond self-realization, the devotee becomes one with Krishna in the sense that Krishna becomes everything for the devotee, and the devotee becomes full in loving Krishna. An intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee then exists. So this is very beautiful. The devotee who attains this equal vision and who goes ahead to start to function in his constant position with Krishna, he becomes one with Krishna in consciousness. Therefore, cannot exist without the Lord, and the Lord also reciprocates. So he has serious eternal relationship with the Lord. The point is, in this Kama Yogi, a devotee can arrive there, and also the Astanga Yogi can also arrive there. Yes, though the Astanga Yoga process is more rigorous and difficult. When the Astanga Yogi arrives there, he also attains that perfection of reciprocating with the Lord and not being able to do anything without seeing the Lord. So it's a stage that the Astanga Yogi can also attain. But the process of bhakti is easier for us. Whereas the Ashtanga Yoga process is very difficult. So we should focus on trying to attain this stage by the practice of Bhakti Yoga, which is very, very easily available. See, it's a very beautiful stage whereby you see the Lord, you function in harmony, complete harmony with the Lord, and your life becomes very, very mystical. Your life becomes automatically very mystical, and at that point, you will not have interest in any other thing than to try to please the Lord, function with Him. So, Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur further explains Krishna's words. When a yogi is constantly realizing me directly with his senses, he is my worshipper and never falls down. In other words, one of the results is that such a devotee will never fall down on the path of devotional service. Yes, such a devotee will never fall down in all circumstances, no matter the distraction. He remains situated in Krishna consciousness. So that is it. It's a stage whereby one never falls down. That Srila Prabhupada in his purpose discussed the direct relationship between the yogi and the super soul. In the context, just as we have read, the whole purpose is very beautiful. And the person in Krishna consciousness certainly sees Lord Krishna everywhere, and he sees everything in Krishna. That such a person may appear to see all separate manifestations of the material nature, but in each and every instant, he is conscious of Krishna, knowing that everything is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. Nothing can exist without Krishna, and Krishna is the Lord of everything. This is the basic principle of Krishna consciousness. The Lord is the Lord, is the Father and the owner of everything. A devotee attains such consciousness. He never falls down because he sees the Lord everywhere. He sees everything in relationship with the Lord. This is the perfection that we are aiming at. At this stage of Krishna consciousness, beyond self-realization, the devotee becomes one with Krishna, in the sense that Krishna becomes everything for the devotee, and the devotee becomes full in loving Krishna. An intimate relationship between the Lord and the devotee then exists. I worship the Prema Lord Govinda, who is always seen by the devotee whose eyes are anointed with the pulp of love. He sees this eternal form of Shama Sundra situated. So this is a stage. At this stage, Lord Krishna never disappears from the sight of the devotee. Yes. Nor does the devotee ever lose sight of the Lord. He sees everything in relationship with the Lord. And he sees the Lord in everything. So it's a very powerful state, attaining which he never falls down again. So in the following verse, Krishna directly described super soul realization as worshipful service to him. That if the yogi has proper knowledge. In other words, when the yogis also arrive there, they eventually become bhaktas. Krishna bhaktas. So let's read the 31. Verse 31. Sarva Bhuta Sitam Yomam Bhajati Ekatwam Astitaha Sarvata Bhatamam Anuapi Sayogi Mayi Vartate Sayogi Mayi Vartate. The yogi who knows that I and the super soul within all creatures are one, worships me and remains always in me in all circumstances. In all circumstances. So let's enjoy Prabhupada's purpose. Because everything is so well analyzed there.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
A yogi who is practicing meditation on the super soul sees within himself the plenary portion of Krishna as Vishnu with 4 hands, holding conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower. The yogi should know that Vishnu is not different from Krishna. Krishna in this form of super soul is situated in everyone's heart. Furthermore, there's no difference between the innumerable super souls present in the innumerable hearts of living things, nor is there a difference between a Krishna conscious person always engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna and a perfect yogi engaged in meditation on the super soul. The yogi in Krishna consciousness, even though he may be engaged in various activities while in material existence, remains always situated in Krishna. This is confirmed in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Srila Rupa Goswami. Likelasha api ava tasu jua muktahasa chate. A devotee of the Lord, always acting in Krishna consciousness, is automatically liberated. In the Narada Pancha Charatra, this is confirmed in this way. The Kalati Anavenchani Krishna Chetovi Dayacha Tam Mayo Bhavati is Pram Jivo Brahmani Yojayet. By concentrating one's attention on the transcendental form of Krishna, who is all-pervading and beyond time and space, one becomes absorbed in thinking of Krishna and then attains the happy state of transcendental association with him. Krishna consciousness is the highest stage of trance in yoga practice. This is very understanding that Krishna is present as Paratma in everyone's heart, makes the yogi faultless. The Vedas, Gopala Champamni Upanishad, confirm this inconceivable potency of the Lord as follows. Ekopisam Badutayo Vibhati. Although the Lord is one, he is present in innumerable hearts as many. Similarly, in this Smita Shastra, it is said, Ekaeva Paro Vishnu, Sarva Vyapi na Shamshaha, as Yadi Rupan Ekamcha, Surya Vat Baduhe Yate. Vishnu is one, and yet he is certainly all-pervading. By his inconceivable potency, in spite of his one form, he is present everywhere, as the sun appears in many places at once. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Thank you. So that is it. The yogi's vision and a devotee who is situated in the service of the super soul is the same. The Astanga yogi and the Bhakta arrive at the same point. Because when the Astanga yogi realizes the super soul, he knows, he realizes his vision changes, and he wants to become a Bhakta then. Because he cannot stay without seeing the Lord anymore. He becomes a Bhakta. And he becomes internally so connected that he knows nothing but the Lord. And the Lord also reciprocates. The Lord knows nothing but him. So the stage of self-realization is possible by Astanga Yoga. But that is a very difficult process, which is not recommended by Krishna. Krishna did not recommend Astanga Yoga for Arjuna because considering the qualities of the age and the practicability of Astanga Yoga in the age, Krishna did not recommend Astanga Yoga for Arjuna. Okay, he recommended Bhakti Yoga instead because the package is very simple and sweet. You will not even know that you are practicing yoga while you are actually practicing yoga. So it's very beautiful package that we should stick on to. So this is the purport of this verse. They both arrive at the same point, but it is very, very easy. It is much more easier. So, see, many of the characteristics of a yogi who sees the super soul and Krishna in oneness are described by Srila Prabhupada in his purport. And this is an example. A yogi who is practicing meditation on the super soul sees within himself the plenary portion of Krishna as Vishnu with 4 hands, holding conch shell, wheel, club, and lotus flower. The yogis should know that Vishnu is not different from Krishna. Krishna is the form of the super soul. Krishna in the form of the super soul is situated in everyone's heart. Furthermore, there is no difference between the innumerable super souls present in the innumerable hearts of the living entities. They are the same super soul. The Lord is one, even though he appears to be many. It's the same super soul in everyone's heart. So even though he appears to be many super souls, it's the same. Chimatra Mataji. Chimatra Mataji is to mute. Chimatra Mataji is to mute. Because Bhakti Prince is hearing everything you are saying. Mute your mic. Chimatra Mataji? Okay.
Yes, Prabhu.
You can mute. Because Bhakti Prince is hearing everything you are saying. Everything. So mute.
But we don't understand, Prabhu.
Huh?
We don't understand what she said.
Yes, it's another Sanskrit. But Bhakti Prince, only Bhakti Prince
Yes,
understand.
another Sanskrit is true.
This is Babata Sanskrit. You can't understand this one unless you go to the school. But Bhakti Prince knows everything. He's here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So you should mute. You should mute your mic.
Okay, Prabhu.
It's still not muted though. Okay. So this is what we're saying, that is there the difference between a Krishna conscious person always engaged in the transcendental loving service of Krishna and the perfect yogi engaged in meditation on the super soul? The yogi in Krishna consciousness, even though he may be engaged in various activities while in the material existence, remains always situated in Krishna. By this proper worship, the yogi understands the actual situation of the soul in the material world. Krishna will describe that as the next test. Okay. So in all circumstances, become a yogi, but become a Bhakti yogi because it's easier for you. If you can practice Ashtanga yoga in addition, okay, all glories. You can practice, and that will enhance your Bhakti. So, but easy, the easiest is Bhakti yoga. Now, verse 32. Is it verse 32 or 31? It's 32. Verse 32.
Yes, 32.
Atmaupanyena savatra samam pasyati yo Arjuna sukam vayadiva dukam sayogi paramumata. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings, both in their happiness and distress, O Arjuna. So the vision of a true yogi is further explained, the vision of a true yogi. And by that vision, his work will also change. So let us read the purport also again. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Somebody should read. It's the same point, but it's being explained deeper.
Purport. One who is Krishna conscious is perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. The cause of the distress of living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God. And the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all the activities of the human being, the proprietor of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friend of all living entities. The perfect yogi knows that the living being who is conditioned by the modes of material nature is subjected to the threefold material miseries due to forgetfulness of his relationship with Krishna. And because one in Krishna consciousness is happy, he tries to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere. Since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, he is the best philanthropist in the world, and he is the dearest servitor of the Lord. Nacha tamsam manusyasu kasyachim me priya Kratamaha. Bhagavad Gita 18.69. In other words, a devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of the all living entities. And in this way, he is factually the friend of everyone. He is the best yogi because he does not desire perfection in yoga for his personal benefit, but tries for other also. He does not envy his fellow living entities. Here is a contrast between a pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested only in his personal elevation. The yogi who has withdrawn to a scheduled place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man towards Krishna consciousness. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. So earlier we said that when one becomes such a yogi who sees Krishna everywhere and see everything in Krishna, such a yogi, two things happen to him internally. His bhava changes, that means his vision changes. He sees Krishna in all living entities. His vision changes. Then his kriya, his work also changes. How? He now knows that the living entities are suffering because of lack of Krishna consciousness. By his own experience, he now knows that every living entity is suffering because of lack of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, as he has become happy by his Krishna consciousness, he wants to extend, he wants to give chance, he wants to help others to also become happy. So his kriya changes. He becomes a preacher. Do unto others as we want others to do unto you. I am suffering. I was suffering because I did not know Krishna. I did not have this kind of vision. And now that I know, if these people are made to know also, they will also become happy. So he wants to give chance for others to become happy also. So he becomes involved in preaching Krishna consciousness. He does not just become satisfied like the yogi. Oh, I have attained self-realization, peace of mind, so I'm happy. He wants to extend that happiness to others also. He wants to give chance. Therefore, he goes out of his comfort zone. He wants to help others to become happy also. So he moves ahead. He starts making arrangements for preaching. He sacrifices so many things. He does preaching programs and is encouraging people along. he becomes a preacher. By his personal example, he's preaching, and by arrangement, he's preaching. He involves himself in all kinds of preaching activities. This is what happens. Out of compassion, he develops compassion for the living entities who are suffering, because he knows that people are suffering because of lack of Krishna consciousness alone. So he wants to give Krishna consciousness to others. Therefore, he wants to distribute the Prabhupada books. He wants to make arrangements for preaching where the conditioned souls can be reached. He wants to make a restaurant and make it an outreach, a preaching program, where people will come around, they take prashadam, even without knowing. Then he gives them some pamphlets. He wants to connect everyone somehow or the other to preaching. This is what happens. His work changes. His vision has changed. His work is now changing. So he want others to be happy as he is happy. He's not satisfied just by sitting there. And this is the difference between the ordinary yogi is focusing on his own happiness and the Bhakti, the devotee. The devotee develops compassion for all living entities. So you want to give them the formula for happiness also. So you become involved in all kinds of preaching programs. This is the level that we are already there. We just need to qualify it and make it stronger. But it's an admirable natural level for the devotees. Once you are a devotee, your heart will melt. You see people are suffering in ignorance. Out of ignorance, they are doing things that are going to bring suffering for them, and they are doing it without knowing. So you want to be an instrument to help them understand their higher self. So it becomes involved in preaching. This is the level. This is the level. But Arjuna is having some difficulty that actually these things we are talking about is not easy. It's not easy. It's a Kshatriya and so many duties to harmonize. How can one actually attain this level? Is it easy? It's not easy. So Arjuna does point out why maintaining his outlook, or why maintaining this outlook is so problematic. This one that Krishna is explaining. Arjuna want to point out that all that you are saying is easy for some people, but it's very, very difficult generally, even for me. So how is it? How can we make it easy? How is it possible? So Arjuna want to point out that to Krishna. He want to challenge Krishna so that Krishna can explain deeper how to practically arrive and maintain that path. So in the next verse, we'll see. Is it verse 33?
Yes,
33. Arjuna Uvacha Yam Yoga Swaya Prokta Samyena Madhusudana Etasyam Napasyami Chanchalatwa Stitam Stiram. Arjuna said, "Oh Madhusudana, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and unendurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady." The mind is restless and unsteady. So this yoga system you have prescribed for me, it appears impractical. It is easier to control the wind than to control the mind. So you are telling me to control the mind as if it's easy. To control the mind is not easy. For me, even as an Aryan, it's not easy for me. How much more for all these other people? So can you tell me, give me some practical ways to control the mind? So, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Yeah.
Purport. The system of mysticism described by the Lord Krishna to Arjuna. Beginning with the word Sukhao, they say, the ending with Yogi Paramaha is here being rejected by Arjuna out of a feeling of inability. It is not possible for an ordinary man to leave home and go to a secluded place in the mountains or jungle to practice yoga in this age of Kali. The present age is characterized by the bitter struggle for a life of short duration. People are not serious about self realization even by simple practical means, and what to speak of this difficult yoga system, which is regulates the modes of living, the manner of sitting, selection of place, and detachment of the mind from material engagements. As a practical man, Arjun thought it was impossible to follow this system of yoga, even though he was favorably endowed in many ways. He belonged to the royal family and was highly elevated in the terms of numerous qualities. He was a great warrior. He had great longevity, and above all, he was the most intimate friend of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 5,000 years ago, Arjun had much better facilities than we do now. Yet he refused to accept this system of yoga. In fact, we do not find any record in history of his practicing it at any time. Therefore, this system must be considered generally impossible in this age of Kali. Of course, it may be possible for some very few rare men, but for a people in general, it is an impossible proposal. If this were so 5,000 years ago, then what of the present day? Those who are imitating the yoga system in the different so-called schools and societies, although complacent, are certainly wasting their time. They are completely in ignorance of the desired goal. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bo. So you can see this. Arjuna is expressing his doubt because you say you have to go to a secluded place, take a mat, go to the forest, make put kusha grass, make an asana that is not too high, too low. You have to sit down, have closed eyes, meditating on the tip of the nose. You have to control the mind and the senses, and you have to become fearless, and you have to stay there and meditate, not interested in everything. So this yoga system, this Ashtanga yoga system, though in the end, according to you, Krishna, you will attain the same goal of the Bible, but this is impractical to me. This is impractical. Arjuna is expressing his doubt. Say, can Arjuna maintain equal vision on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? One with such equal vision observes me all and also sees every being in me, as you said, and sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, as in text 30. Can Arjuna really see Maharaj Yudhishthira and Duryodhana equally? Can Arjuna really see Maharaj Yudhishthira and Duryodhana equally? Is it easy? Duryodhana, who has been tormenting them all these years, you have to see them equally as friends, as the super soul and all that. Huh? Arjuna presents his doubt to Krishna, frankly telling him that for him, such vision is impossible. Could Arjuna, by the strength of his intelligence, see both his friends and enemies equally and simultaneously carry out his duty of fighting? Arjuna does point out why maintaining this outlook is so problematic. Why is so problematic? So He's pointing out this to Krishna. You see, you have said all this very beautiful, but for me, it's not practical. I cannot see Duryodhana and Yudhishthira equally on the battlefield. See all my enemies and friends equally, and at the same time carry out my duty, fight and carry out. I can't do that. I can't. For me, so Arjuna points out why maintaining this outlook is so problematic for him. 34. You will see what he says further. Chanchalam hi manaha Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayu iva suduskaram. For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and so to subdue it is, it seems to me, more difficult than controlling the wind. More difficult than controlling the wind. Because the wind, you can use some mechanisms, some devices to control it. But to control the mind is very, very difficult. We are all in the same position as Arjuna. We know how the mind is very, very difficult to control, but we will not speak out. Arjuna is speaking out for our sake. Because those who are feeling shy to speak out, Arjuna is speaking out for our sake, so that we can try, because without controlling the mind, you can actually make no progress in spiritual life. So Arjuna is pointing out, for the mind is restless, turbulent, and obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna. And so to subdue it is, it seems to me, more difficult than controlling the mind. It's restless, turbulent, and obstinate. 3 adjectives again. So purport. Can somebody read the purport for us?
The mind is so strong and obstinate that it sometimes overcomes the intelligence. Although the mind is supposed to be subservient to the intelligence. For a man in practical world who has to fight so many opposing elements, it is certainly very difficult to control the mind. Artificially, one may establish a mental equilibrium towards both friend and enemy, but ultimately, no worldly man can do so. But this is more difficult than controlling the raging wind. In the Vedic literature, Katha Upanishad 1.3.3.4, it is said, the individual is the messenger, is the passenger in the car of the material body. And intelligence is the driver. Mind is the driving instrument, and the senses are the horses. The self is thus the enjoyer or sufferer in the association of the mind and senses. So it is understood by great thinkers. Intelligence is supposed to direct the mind, but the mind is so strong and obstinate that it often overcomes even one's own intelligence, as an acute infection may surpass the efficacy of medicine. Such a strong mind is supposed to be controlled by the practice of yoga. But such practice is never practical for a worldly person like Arjuna. And what can we say of modern man? The simile used here is appropriate. One cannot capture the blowing wind, and it is even more difficult to capture the turbulent mind. The easiest ways to control the mind, as suggested by Lord Caitanya, is chanting Hare Krishna, the great mantra for deliverance, in all humility. The method prescribed is Savais Manaha, Krishna Padara Vrinda. mind fully in Krishna, only then will there remain no other engagement to agitate the mind. Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. So can we see? Arjuna is so practical. He has made his point very, very clear. He has made his point very, very clear. And he expects Krishna to answer that you are telling me to control the mind. It is not simple. It's not easy. The mind is stubborn. The mind is very whimsical. It is very, very obstinate. So are you telling me to just control the mind? It's not easy. You know it. So what I want you to clarify this. I, Arjuna, I am an ordinary man. And we are saying that Arjuna himself is an Aryan, and he is saying that he's an ordinary man. He cannot do this. He's not a yogi. So Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur comments that the intelligence is sometimes compared to a sharp needle. That even the very sharp needle of intelligence cannot pierce the strong mind any more than a needle can forcibly pierce iron. So Arjuna, however, compares his mind to the wind, an unstoppable enemy. The wind is unstoppable, very, very, it can pass through anywhere. The mind's unrest is also sometimes compared to a chronic disease that won't respond to medicine. So that's the nature of the mind. That the mind is pramati, that means it's always churning, always very stubborn, turbulent, balabat, unbreakable, and dridam, obstinate. Three adjectives: pramati, always churning; balabat, unbreakable; and dridam, obstinate. So his business is to accept a thing and then reject the next thing in the next moment. It may then quickly accept another thing and reject it, and accept this and reject. This is the nature of the mind. It's very difficult to control it. So text 33 and 34 are Arjuna's response to Krishna's question, where Krishna asked Arjuna to say, why don't you just control your mind with your intelligence? So Arjuna is responding to Krishna that Chanchala Imana Krishna Pramati Balavanjuda. The mind is very, very stubborn, obstinate. It's not easy to control. It's easier to control the wind than the mind. So he's responding to Krishna's request that you just control the mind with intelligence. So the next verse answers this question. Because if controlling the mind is possible, by what means can I do it? So in the purport that we just read, says the individual is the passenger. It's a quotation from Prerequisite. The individual is the passenger in the car or the material body, and intelligence is the driver. So the intelligence is the driver. Then the mind is the driving instrument, and the senses are the horses. So these senses are like the horses. But to control the horses, you have to put a rope and yoke them together. Then the driver sits on the back of the horses and he will hold the rope. And by manipulating the rope, he controls the horses. So Krishna is the driver. You are the one holding they are the mind. You are the driver, you hold the rope. You just sit down like that and manipulate the mind. Use your intelligence and control the mind. This is what I'm telling you. It's as simple as that. Then Arjuna said, you think it's easy? The mind is so stubborn and obstinate and very, 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 very turbulent. always churning, desiring, desiring. So how can I just control? Krishna is as simple as that. So in the next verse, you will see Krishna's direct formula. What it means by is as simple as ABC. You will see. Krishna will answer Arjuna. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Samsaya Mahabao Manodruningram Chalam Abhyasana Chukundeya Beragina Chagriyate. The blessed Lord said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to calm the restless mind, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. This is the formula. Krishna first agreed with him. And yes, you have observed very rightly, you are very intelligent. The mind is very difficult to control, but it is possible. But it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. It is possible. So let us read the purport.
Purport. The difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as expressed by Arjuna, is accepted by the personality of Godhead, but at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment, it is possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a secret place, focusing the mind on the supersoul, restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. This is a very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn Vairaga. Vairaga means
Vairagya.
detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities of Krishna. This is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called Parishanubhava, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. Similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objectives. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatments and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind, and eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Can you get it all clear? Very, very clear and self-explanatory. Krishna said, Arjuna, what you are saying is true. It's difficult to control the mind, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. So what is that constant practice? That constant practice is the process of Krishna consciousness as given to us by the parampara. This is a constant practice. Constant practice. This is the process. Therefore, we should be constantly engaged in these positive devotional activities. If you are doing that, automatically we lose taste in all the lower tendencies, naturally. And while you are detaching from coming in contact with sense objects, you have to become simultaneously attached to practicing these devotional processes. So by that constant practice and by detachment, we can eventually arrive. This is a process. This is a process. This is a process. The medicine is constant hearing of all the practices. The number one, according to the Prabhu, is the constant hearing, as we are doing. Constantly hear about the dangers of sense gratification, constantly hear about the benefit of devotional services, constantly hear about how Krishna is the proprietor of everything, how we are eternal. And by that constant hearing, regulating our senses, selecting our food, eating the present, accepting this package of Krishna consciousness to heart and practicing it, you will have a direct perception of the self by realization. You will have a direct perception of the self by realization. So this is the formula. The formula is very, very practical. Embrace the process of Krishna consciousness as it is packaged and presented by the and constantly practice. You will arrive. Truly, it is difficult to control the mind and the senses. It is possible by constant practice and by detachment. So, yeah, Dr. Omega, you should mute, please. Thank you very much for cooperating. Thank you very much for coming so late and also drawing our attention by unmuting your voice, your son, and we have caught you. Welcome, all best of the latecomers. I see you are better than those who didn't come at all. Ramachandra, Bhakti Lawson, and others who failed to come. You are better than them. You are the best among all the latecomers. Welcome, Hare Krishna. Better late than never. Better late than never. So welcome. Thank you. So we have been talking about controlling the mind and the senses as a prerequisite for yoga practice. And Krishna has been hammering on this and talking about the benefits. And Arjuna is expressing his doubt as a practical man that what you are saying is very sweet and attractive, but it is not practical to me. Because the mind you are telling me to control is very, very stubborn, is very volatile, is unsteady. That for him, it is easier to control the wind, the raging wind, than to control the mind. So what you are telling me to see everybody with equal vision to control the mind and the senses is not practical for me. Krishna said, yes, it is true. Your observation is right, but it is possible by constant practice and by detachment. And what is the constant practice? The positive devotional activities as packaged and presented to us by the Parampara. And of all of them, hearing is number one. So develop your affinity for hearing and do hear. Then go into practicing what you have. And you will see by that constant practice and by detachment, we arrive. This is where we are. So here, Krishna agrees with Arjuna's analysis as the proper writes. The difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as expressed by Arjuna, is accepted by the Supreme Personality of God. But at the same time, he suggests that by practice of detachment, it is possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the super soul, restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By the practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 processes, the 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagement is hearing about Krishna. And this is a very powerful transcendental method for pursuing or for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities devoted to Krishna, not devoted to Krishna, one can very easily learn Vairagya or detachment. Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind and spirit. So it is very clear. But Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur also comments that even when a disease is advanced, if the patient places himself under the care of the expert physician, the spiritual master, then the regular treatment, which is practice and Vairagya detachment, will be effective. Even though the medicine is very acute, the disease is very acute, if one places himself under the strict regulations, following the guidance of the physician, he will eventually arrive. Okay, so Krishna calls Arjuna Mahabaho, mighty arms. Arjuna's arms were so strong that he defeated even Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, however, is not nearly as strong as the crest jewel of all warriors, the mind. The mind is even stronger than Lord Shiva. So if Arjuna can control his mind by yoga, then he can rightly claim the title Mahabahu, the mighty armed. So in this verse, Krishna also calls Arjuna Kunti, son of Kunti, thereby telling Arjuna, do not worry. You are the son of my aunt Kunti. I will help you control the mind. Krishna first, he taunted him, like scorning him. You are mighty armed Arjuna. You even conquered Lord Shiva. So you can easily conquer the mind if you follow this process of constant detachment and practice. Say, but my dear, you are my arms. It is actually true that it's difficult, but I will help you. By my help, you will see that it will be very possible. You will eventually. Okay? So don't be afraid. These things are there. So do not worry. You are the son of my aunt. I will help you. Krishna continues instructing Arjuna on how to control the mind in the next verse. So verse 36. Asamyatmana yogo dusprapa itime mati yasyatmana tu yadada sakyo bhaktum upayata. For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by right means is assured of success. That is my opinion. Somebody should read the purport. Hare Krishna.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, we can hear you.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead declares that one who does not accept the proper treatment to detach the mind from material engagement can hardly achieve success in self-realization. Trying to practice yoga while engaging the mind in material enjoyment is like trying to ignite a fire by pouring water on it. Yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. Such a show of yoga may be mentally lucrative, but it is useless as far as spiritual realization is concerned. Therefore, one must control the mind by engaging it constantly in transcendental loving service of the Lord. Unless one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he cannot steadily control the mind. A Krishna conscious person easily achieves the result of yoga practice without a separate endeavor. But a yoga practitioner cannot achieve success without becoming Krishna conscious. Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. So you can see, so very, very important that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the proper rise. The Supreme Personality of Godhead declares that one who does not accept the proper treatment to detach the mind from material engagement can hardly achieve success in seven dimensions. One who fails to practice the mind control cannot attain success in Krishna consciousness. So it's a must that we practice, and the formula is there. And we should follow. If you follow the formula, you will eventually arrive. Okay, follow the formula under the guidance of the expert physician. You will arrive. Trying to practice yoga while engaging the mind in material engagement is like trying to ignite fire while pouring water on it. So, sense gratification and yoga practice go ill together. See, you cannot achieve success unless the mind and the senses are controlled. So, the beginning point of spiritual life is mind and sense control. This we emphasize again. We can only remind you, but only you can do it for yourself. This is one of the things that no one else can do for you, but only you can do for yourself. To control your own mind and your senses. It is only you who can do it for yourself. No one else, not even the spiritual master. You have to make the endeavor to attract the mercy of the spiritual master. Then, without support, you will be able to arrive at steadiness. Therefore, one must control the mind by engaging it constantly in the transcendental loving service of God. Unless one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, he cannot steadily control the mind. So the formula for controlling the mind is engagement in Krishna consciousness. A Krishna conscious person easily achieves the result of yoga practice without separate endeavor. But a yoga practitioner cannot achieve success without becoming Krishna conscious. Okay? But automatically, a Krishna conscious person can attain success because the package is there to help you control the senses automatically. So this is very, very sweet. So whether we practice Niskama yoga, Jnana yoga, Astanga yoga, or Bhakti yoga, we need to control the mind by Abhyasa and by Vairagya. Abhyasa means to practice the process or principles of yoga. Yes, this is very, very important. In any form of yoga you find yourself, mind and sense control is important. Without controlling the mind and senses, there is no question of yoga. So we succeed in yoga practice by following the procedures given by Guru, the Guru and the Sastri. What did the Guru say? What did the Sastri say? You have to regulate yourself accordingly, and by renunciation of vairagya or unfavorable desires. Everything that is unfavorable to the execution of devotional service is to reject it. These are the components of surrender. When we say surrender to Krishna, it means avoid all those things that are unfavorable to the execution of the devotional service. Then you accept all those things that are favorable to the execution of the devotional service. This is the beginning of surrender. Let's not surrender. So after understanding the formidability of the obstacles to progress in yoga, and after hearing of the processes to remove them, Arjuna speaks the last verse. So this is going to be the last verse for today. Arjuna speaks the last verse. We discussed this verse 37. Then we go to the capsules in the PowerPoints, and we conclude. we tell you what we have told you again. So this is the process. So the process of teaching and learning is to first tell them what you want to tell them. This is what I want to tell you. This is an overview. You give an overview, what you want to tell them. Then you tell them what you want to tell them. Then after telling them, then you tell them what you have told them. So that becomes like a preview or summary, internal summary. So we have told you something. And we are going to tell you what we have told you. After this verse, we go to the screen and review it and see again. Verse 37. Arjuna Uvacha. Arjuna Uvacha. Yati Sradaya Peta. Yoga Chalita Manasa. Apropya Yoga Samsiddhi. Kam Gatim Krishna Gachati. Arjuna said, what is the destination of the man of faith who does not persevere, who in the beginning takes to the process of self-realization, but who later desists due to worldly mindedness, and thus does not attain perfection? So you can see this. The particular section we have been dealing with is over. This is a new thing, the destination of an unsuccessful yogi. So we're supposed to begin that within the next few verses. Let's take the first verse of it, and which is what we have read. Somebody should read the purport.
Purport. The path of self-realization or mysticism is described in the Bhagavad Gita. The basic principle of self-realization is knowledge that the living entity is not this material body, but that he is different from it, and that his happiness is in eternal life, bliss, and knowledge. These are transcendental, beyond both body and mind. Self-realization is sought by the path of knowledge, by the practice of eightfold system, or by Bhakti Yoga. In each of these processes, one has to realize the constitutional position of the living entity, his relationship with God, and the activities whereby he can re-establish the lost link and achieve the highest perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness. Following any of the above mentioned three methods, one is sure to reach the supreme goal sooner or later. This was asserted by the Lord in the second chapter. Even a little endeavor on the transcendental path offers a great hope for deliverance. Out of these three methods, the path of Bhakti Yoga is especially suitable for this age because it is both direct method of God realization. To be doubly assured, Arjuna is asking Lord Krishna to confirm his former statement. One may sincerely accept the path of self-realization, but the process of cultivation of knowledge and the practice of the eightfold yoga system are generally very difficult for this age. Therefore, despite constant endeavor, one may fail for many reasons. First of all, one may not be sufficiently serious about following the process. To pursue the transcendental path is more or less to declare war on the illusory energy. Consequently, whenever a person tries to escape the clutches of the illusory energy, she tries to defeat the practitioner by various allurements. a conditioned soul is already allured by the modes of material energy, and there is every chance of being allured again, even while performing transcendental disciplines. This is called yoga. This is called yoga chalita manasya, deviation from the transcendental path. Arjuna is inquisitive to know the results of deviation from the path of self-realization. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So you have seen, this is a different theme entirely. And you say that self-realization is sought by the path of knowledge, the practice of eightfold system, Astanga, or by Bhakti. So of all the three, the path of Bhakti is the most pure. And here Arjuna is saying that if somebody has left everything, somebody is already practicing Krishna consciousness. He has renounced his family members. He has renounced many things, his social status, his students, their friends in school. He has renounced his work, renounced so many things. And he takes fully to this Krishna conscious process. And after going for a long time, somehow or the other, he fails. What happens to him? Does he lose everything because he has already left his side? He has left his base and is unable to get to the destination. So what happens to him? Does it become like a little cloud that breaks away from the big cloud and remains a non-entity in the sky? Because he has already left all that he knew before and is unable to reach where he was going. So he's like in between and is unable to complete because, and this is possible. It's possible for anyone practicing this system. Why? Because this process is like declaring war against the illusory energy. The illusory energy is so powerful. It's not a small, it's Durga Devi herself. It's a universal entity. The illusory energy, universal. He has many hands and can manifest millions of hands if necessary. So you are now trying to escape being a prisoner in his own prison yard. In Durga's prison yard, you are trying to escape. This is spiritual life you are trying to practice. Because the living entity is already ensnared. It's already within the influence of material nature. That's why he has this material body lifetime after lifetimes until now. Now you want to escape from the prison house of material existence. The process is to take shelter of Krishna and to follow the package is given to you through Bhakti Yoga practice. I say to control the mind and the senses is the beginning of that process. And as you are practicing the process, Krishna is going to be there. The Parampara will be there. The Guru, they will all support you to be able to escape from the prison house of material existence. We are all in this material world. It's a big prison house. Big, and we are all prisoners there. And spiritual life means we want to escape from the prison. So how can we escape from Durga? When she's universally everywhere, she doesn't sleep. She doesn't sleep. If you sleep and is snoring, then you can escape. Common prisons, you see that prisoners, terrible criminals, they cannot escape. How much more a universal prison house and a universal, fully conscious, master? How can you escape his surveillance? When you are sleeping, it's not asleep, and it's seen everywhere simultaneously. How can you escape? So, while trying to escape by following the process of Krishna consciousness, it is possible that one can become distracted and be recaptured again. If that happens, it becomes like a prisoner of war that have been trying to escape from the prison, but is recaptured by the master. There will be more surveillance, there will be more punishment, there will be more everything. So this is the situation. Arjuna is asking if someone or the other due to worldly mindedness, one, fall back to his old ways. Does he lose everything? Even though he has been practicing, will he lose everything? What is his fate? This is the question Arjuna is asking. And the answer to these questions constitutes the rest of the chapter. This chapter has 47 verses, and we have come up to 37. So it remains 10 verses to conclude the chapter. The rest 10 verses are going to dwell on what happens to an unsuccessful yogi. What is his destination? So Krishna is going to respond to Arjuna's questions. So this is the situation. Having said this, we should go to our screen. Okay. Okay, here we are. Verses 31 to 32. Actions of a perfect yogi. Is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and distress. So Arjuna, one who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. Is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. By dint of his own personal experience. As I was so unhappy until I came in contact with Krishna consciousness, and as I'm becoming happy to the degree that I take to Krishna consciousness, so also the same is possible for every other person. Every other person is unhappy because of lack of Krishna consciousness, of God consciousness. But they will become happy proportionately by how much they take to God consciousness. Therefore, what I'm experiencing, the formula I've gotten, I want to share it with others. So it becomes compassionate. Out of overflowing compassion, I want to help others to become happy also. That one who is Krishna conscious is the perfect yogi, is aware of everyone's happiness and distress. This is how he becomes aware of everyone's happiness and distress, by dint of his own personal experience. I was unhappy before I met Krishna consciousness. Now by practicing it, I've become happy to this level. That means this is possible for every other person too. As I've known this formula, I have to give it to others. On the basis of this, it becomes a Krishna. So this is the beauty. So then Arjuna's inquiry in verse 33. Arjuna's inability, although favorably endowed, he belonged to the royal family and was highly elevated in terms of numerous qualities. He was a great warrior, he had great longevity, and above all, he was the most intimate friend of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God. 5,000 years ago, Arjuna had much better facilities than we do now. Yet he refused to accept this system of yoga. What system of yoga? Ashtanga yoga, not Bhakti. Ashtanga yoga. That process of self-control, going to a secluded place, sitting in erect posture with half-closed eyes, focusing on the tip of the nose, and meditating fearlessly, ignoring every other thing. Arjuna refused to accept this process 5,000 years ago with all the better facilities. So what is the guarantee? What is the hope that we can become successful in that kind of? Krishna is only showing him that this is there, but it's impracticable in this age. And Arjuna understood it and he questioned accordingly. So, therefore, this system must be considered generally impossible in this age of Kali. Generally impossible in this age of Kali. However, some special persons can be able to practice it. But it's not generally possible for everyone. Now, to capture a blowing wind, the nature of the mind, the simile used here is appropriate. One cannot capture the blowing wind. And it is even more difficult to capture the turbulent mind. The easiest way to control the mind, as suggested by Lord Chaitanya, is chanting Hare Krishna, the great mantra for deliverance in all humanity. So we should take to the chanting of the holy name. The chanting of the holy name is so practiced individually that you have your beat, you have to manage your time, you have to chant the mantra for your own benefit. It is not something you are doing for someone else, or it's not something you go to some school to do. It's something you have to do for yourself, by yourself, in the best of time for you. So it is for your enlightened self-interest. So this is the process, and it is easily done because there are no hard and fast rules. If you cannot do this, then what is the guarantee that you can do Astanga Yoga? So take out this process. This is recommended for this age. Now, in verse 34, this analogy was given to express, Krishna was giving the analogy to give a hint of how Arjuna can control the mind and the senses. Because even though it is possible, it is truly very difficult. So some extra lessons need to be given. So Krishna gave this, that the individual is the passenger. You see where the passenger is sitting? On the back of the horses. That's where the passenger normally sits. The individual is the passenger in the car of the material body. This whole material body is a car, is the horse, and intelligence is the driver. See where the passenger is at the back there. See the passenger. See the passenger here. See the passenger. See intelligence. Intelligence is the driver. Mind is the driving instrument. What is the mind there? The ropes. It is through the ropes that the horses are controlled. They are attached to the back or the head of the horse. Then the driver will hold all of them together. Then by manipulating them, the horses are controlled. While the individual is the passenger sitting behind the intelligence. Intelligence does. Therefore, Krishna is saying that with the intelligence, Arjuna should control the mind. He should control these ropes. And with by manipulating the ropes, by controlling the mind, he can now manipulate the senses. These 5 horses represent the 5 senses, the 5 working senses. The eyes, you see the eye there, the eyes, the nose, the ear, which other ones? These are the 5 senses. So the intelligence is the passenger in the car or the material body. And intelligence is the driver. Mind is the driving instrument, and the senses are the horses. The self is thus the enjoyer of suffering in the association of the mind and the sense. So it is understood. So it is understood by great thinkers. This is from Katha Upanishad. So Krishna is telling Arjuna that use intelligence to control the mind. Why are you complaining? Use your intelligence to control the mind. Then, the nature of the mind, Arjuna for that. Intelligence is supposed to direct the mind, but mind is so strong and obstinate that it often overcomes, even one's own intelligence. As an acute infection may surpass the efficacy of a medicine. Some infections are so acute that no matter how much you apply the medicine, it does not, take care of it. But to say, yes, that is true. The solution to the mind, the problem of the mind, is given by Arjuna, by Krishna like this, in verse 35. That paresa anubhava, spiritual satisfaction. This is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached. One becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called Parisa Nubhava, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. This is true. So, by constant practice and by detachment. Now, solution to the mind continue. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind. And eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering persons. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. So please take up the process individually. And we are saying that no one can do it for you, only you can do it for yourself. So this is it. This is the solution. Constant hearing and detachment. Ignite a fire. 36. While pouring water. Trying to practice yoga. Trying to practice yoga while engaging the mind in material enjoyment is like trying to ignite a fire while pouring water on it. You are igniting fire and you are pouring water. It's a foolish action. Only fools, only F does that. Only the Fs does that. So to want you to let the mind loose at the same time you are practicing self-realization is a contradiction. It's a contradiction. You are lighting water and you are pouring water on it. What is your aim actually? Are you a fool? So yoga practice without mental control is a waste of time. Such a soul of yoga may be materially lucrative, but it is useless as far as spiritual realization is concerned. Useless. Therefore, one must control the mind by engagement, by engaging it constantly in the transcendental level. Therefore, control of the mind, the desire to control the mind, the determination to control the mind and the senses must not be traded for anything. There is no compromise. You have to be determined to control the mind and the senses if you want to practice yoga and be successful. You want to successfully practice. So this 37 to 45 is a different session. Then 46 and 47 are just general conclusion. So this constitutes the last theme. But we have done 37 of it. And they say 37 to 39, they are closely interwoven. So we leave this slide. We leave this slide. We will not leave it because it's in the purport. This one is in the 37 which we have read. Okay, let's do it. Arjuna's another inquiry. To pursue the transcendental path is more or less to declare war on the illusory energy, as we were explaining. The illusory energy is universal. Now you are declaring war against the illusory energy. A prisoner trying to escape the prison house. The prisoners will not like to reduce their efficiency by allowing you to escape easily. So there will be constant tests when you are trying to escape. Is this person really ready to escape? You want to serve my master? Then material nature will test you in various ways if you are trying to become a devotee and get out. So to become a devotee means ultimately you want to get out of the prison house. So consequently, whenever a person tries to escape the clutches of the illusory energy, she tries to defeat the practitioner by various allurements, to the point of mystic powers. Whatever you desire at the point, it becomes manifest. Anything you want to do, you can easily become carried away and you go and open some center and begin to heal people and begin to become a famous man there. And you are getting lost, trading the real, goal for something less, a byproduct. And material nature can make arrangement to lure you like that, where you begin to consider material success as real success. That whatever you desire can happen. You can heal people, you tell people this will happen to you. Then you establish yourself as the problem solver for So for people and become carried away by enjoying the servitorship that you enjoy from such persons, and you use it go. So a conditioned soul is already allured by the modes of material energy, and there is every chance of being allured again, even while performing transcendental disciplines. So we have to be careful to safeguard the treasure of our devotional service by constant practice and by detachment. This is called Yoga Charita Manasaha, deviation from the transcendental path. Arjuna is inquisitive to know the results of deviation from the path of self-realization. You want to know what happens to an unsuccessful yogi, somebody who practices yoga for a long time, or who practices yoga. What happens to him if he happens to get distracted along the line? What happens? Does he lose everything? Does it become like a cloud that breaks away from the main cloud, little cloud that breaks away from the main cloud, but does not get to its destination? Does it remain a non-entity in the cloud? What happens to him? He has been practicing before, like some of us. We have been in this process for 35, 37 years. We left the behind when we were 22, just after finishing some schools. We left, and we have been practicing for all these years. So if along the line, by lack of focus, we lose out and decide to leave the business, what happens to us? Have we lost everything just like that after all these years of sacrifice? What happens? This is Arjuna's inquisitiveness. It's inquisitive on behalf of everyone else. So this inquisition will be addressed in the next few 8 verses or so, 7, 8 verses. Then Krishna will conclude the chapter. So thank you very much for coming on board for today, and we implore you to be consistent. At the end of this chapter, we will conclude the unit, and another teacher will come. But before then, the upper Sunday, the Sunday after this Sunday, that means next Sunday, by next Sunday, there will be exams for this unit. So all students will prepare for the exams for this unit within the week. All students will prepare for exams for this unit within the week, so that by next Sunday, we conduct the first exams. It is online. We all come on board here. We advise you to put on 2 devices. One you place at the back, facing you from behind. One you are sitting in front. Then by that, you'll be able to monitor all activities. All activities during the exams can be monitored. And this is how we do it. So prepare. There is a question bank in your student's handbook. You are expected to solve all the questions there. There are plenty, but you should solve them. That will force you to read, to capture all the essential points. You should solve them. You look into the book, because when they ask a question, they tell you where the question is coming from. It is indicated, the chapter and the text. So you go there to read that text and find the answers. Then you solve all the questions in an exercise. Then once you carry that exercise book, you have carried all your questions for the exam. You'll be studying it, the questions and the answers. You'll be studying them. Then along the line, in the question bank, there are analogies also. These analogies are there. There are many analogies that are powerful preaching capsules. Analogies are very nice, because if you analyze one analogy, you can preach the whole class. It's enough for a 2 hours class, one analogy. So these analogies are preaching truth, essential points encapsulated into a swallowable, little capsule. So they are the analogies. We are going to ask about 4 or 5 analogies. Out of the many analogies, we ask only 5. That means we can randomly pick anyone. So the student safety is to try to read all of them again and again. Oh, so that anyone will pick, you'll be able to remember the word, because we just omit some words, important words, key words in the analogy, and you have to fill it in. If you're able to get, if you read the analogy, that all the analogy questions are just bonus. About 20 marks will be bonus for you. If you read the analogies well, are you able to fill them in nicely? So this is it. Analogies are about 5 questions, and the other questions are up to 20. Some are A, B, some are only A, some are A, B. Each question carries 4 marks. So this is how it is. So we expect you to prepare against next Sunday. Okay? Hare Krishna.
Hare
Be
Krishna.
friendly.
Hare Krishna.
Be friendly. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, all there will be no objective, no? Fill in the blanks or MCQs.
Yes, those are only the analogies.
Okay, only in the analogy. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
please be friendly with your student handbook and the Puva Swadhyaya, the question bank. Be friendly and familiar with them. Familiarize yourself with the question bank. All the questions are coming from there. They are already there. So if you have solved them, it's a matter of scoring 100%, as easy as possible. 100%. You can just score 100%. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
So, Hare Krishna,
for your
Prabhu.
presence. Hare Krishna.
So, tomorrow is on Initiation Day. I don't think some of us will be able to join. So, this is just to inform you. Hare Krishna. Tomorrow is our Initiation Day.
Tomorrow
so
will not get holiday for exam preparation.
No, tomorrow is the last class.
So Saturday we'll have a holiday, like for preparation of exam. Next Saturday.
After tomorrow, throughout the week, you are free. Holiday from Monday to Saturday. Then only
what I mean is tomorrow is our Initiation Day. So me per se, I will not be able to join. So I'm just informing.
Oh, no problem, no problem.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. You go and read.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you
Okay,
very
that
much.
is it. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. This confounder Charles Laisi back to the song from Wariki.
Yeah.
All glory to all the students.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.